take a vote on some student matters that were discussed. So, Ms. Jensen, would you read us the numbers, please?
In the matter of student number 18-002, the recommendation of stipulated expulsion, do you uphold the motion? So I have
I move that we
motion.
uphold the motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. In the matter of student number 18-003, stipulated expulsion, do you uphold the recommendation of the committee? Do I have a motion?
I move that we uphold the motion.
And second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. In the matter of student number 17-006, the application is for readmit. Do you uphold the application to readmit the student? Do I have a motion?
Okay, so at this time, we are going to deny admittance to this student, and we are going to move to a suspended student expulsion
Okay.
to allow the student to attend Liberty on a suspended expulsion instead at this time.
Okay, that's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, we will now move into open session, so if everybody will please join me and stand up for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I need approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as listed. I'll second that. Please hold. I propose that we move item 13.2 to the beginning of the agenda to address a procedural matter before moving into the rest of the content.
To move at the beginning of 13 or to?
After the consent calendar. Yes, to move it after the consent calendar.
So she seconded it.
Right, to move 13.2 directly after the consent.
Okay, so,
And the second.
okay, actually, the first one's already been proposed and seconded, so we need to withdraw,
Oh, got it.
withdraw that.
So I
So do we need
withdraw.
to make a new motion?
So we can vote no on that,
We vote no on approving the agenda as is.
as
And
is.
then we do the second motion to change it to 13.2.
We do need a vote on the
Or
first.
I'm just withdrawing my
Okay, and do you withdraw the second? Sorry about all this, but these is all legal documents and it all has to be put in there correctly.
Right, okay. So I withdraw the motion to approve the agenda as listed and make a motion to move section 13.2 to right up after the consent calendar.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. We have adjusted our agenda. Thank you.
We've accomplished one thing.
All right. Okay, so we are going to start with our highlights. Dr. Young, would you like to get this going?
Very good. Good evening, trustees. Good evening, everybody who joined us tonight. This is one of my favorite parts of the board agenda, that we highlight something wonderful that's taking place out in our schools. And this one came to me by an email from a teacher by the name of Stacy Starkweather, who is here, and he'll introduce himself and introduce what he'll be presenting tonight. But when he sent this email to me, he said, "Charles, you got to look at this." And I watched this video, and it was the coolest thing. And you have an opportunity to take a look at that tonight. So, Mr. Starkweather, if you could come to the podium, introduce yourself, and let us know what we'll be viewing.
Hello, everybody. It's loud today. Everybody on the board, it's an honor to be invited here to provide our highlight. I was lucky enough this year to be handed the mantle for AP Psychology from the retiring Chris Archer, a very popular and very special program. One of the projects we did involved learning the parts of the brain, and it turned out pretty well. And so I'm going to invite the students actually to tell you about their project. So here's Gabby and Scott.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. I am Gabby Campitelli.
I'm Scott Myers.
We were fortunate enough to be given this project that kind of enhanced our creative abilities. The assignment was to create a song. We could do a cover of a song or make an original song of the parts of the brain, and we learned about the functions and of all the different parts. How did we do this project?
Well, it was kind of hard getting it together at first, just because we both have busy schedules. I work. Gabby's part of Boina, a really popular choir. She's amazing. Thank you. You're welcome. But it was kind of hard getting it together at first, but we were really lucky to have like access periods. We worked in access periods, and I don't know, we were able to piece it together. Mr. Starkweather was very kind, and he kind of gave us extra time to get it together, and ended up working it out.
Yeah, as you can imagine, like a busy teenager's schedule outside of school, you don't really want to work on a project, right? But this was pretty fun. Like, we had a great time doing this, and with a little help and inspiration from other peers and my father, who did all the sound for the video, and one of my really good friends did the filming. It turned out amazing, and it was just really awesome to see what was able to be done with just a little extra work and push to see what we can do with our creative side, instead of just our regular standards, Singing and dancing and being super goofy. Like, this video is completely goofy, and so it was a lot of fun. So we will show you it now.
Talking about my brain. I've got so many thoughts you wouldn't believe. My left hemisphere makes it easy to see. I guess you'd say the cerebral cortex makes me function straight. Sensory, motor, visual, talking about auditory cortex.
One, two, a 1, 2, 3,
Mama do it, don't mess around because it keeps me going. And we know for sure.
Keeps me breathing.
But does it really matter? Cause my thalamus helps me walk out that door.
To relay motor and sensory signals to the cerebral cortex.
Don't try to fight your feelings, cause your amygdala will shut you right down.
Don't mess with my emotions.
Thank God for reticular formation. Stick my brain together, cause we don't know how.
That we would.
Brain pathways.
but what makes you, but what makes you, but what makes you function.
Brain pathway.
Memories may be lost, but they can be seen through a glimpse of hope. We live a life we live with pleasure. But life ain't nothing without something to show. To show is to sew our thoughts together, forming what is our brain. Our subliminal thoughts, thinking lots about how memory rots. Time decays and our perception sways. Life moves fast, it wanes and it tames, but that's just our brain.
Our brain. Our brain. That's what makes up our brain. Our brain.
We out.
Excellent, very well done. We appreciate you coming in and sharing that. If your teacher gave you a test at the end of all that, do you think presenting it that way would help you remember the information better? Good, good. Oh, that was outstanding. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Starkweather. Yeah, thanks.
Putting some good talent to it. Absolutely. Okay, next up on our agenda is our reports. We'll start with our student reports.
All right. My name is Christian Chavez, and I am the ASB Vice President at Benicia High School, and I will be talking about some upcoming events at our school. So, our spring musical auditions are being held right now. So today was day 1, I believe, and then tomorrow is the second day of tryouts. And then next week on Friday the 26th and Saturday the 27th, we will be holding our annual student talent show from 7 to 9 p.m. And from there, the next day after that, on Sunday the 28th, the band will be hosting their annual Jazz and Crab Feed. And this Saturday, we will be holding a mock SAT at BHS at 9 o'clock in the morning. And tomorrow, our girls soccer team will be playing at Bethel, and boys basketball will also be playing at Bethel. And on February 3rd, our band will be leaving for their big trip down in New Orleans. So that's going to be really exciting.
All right, hello everybody. My name's Alex Torres. I'm the ASB president at Benicia High School, and I'll be talking about our many past events. And that is, school just started last week, and we're all ready for the new year. That's it.
I have a question. Do you guys know what the musical is going to be? Huh?
Legally Blonde. Yes.
Our superintendent's report, Dr. Young.
All
right.
Trustee Morgan, opportunity to join us. Traffic is bad on the way over in the city. Yeah, oh, man. Well, we're glad you're here. So just a few items for you. The Facility Steering Committee met last week to talk about where we are in our bond projects. And we talked about the middle school remodeling project, which is very exciting. And we also talked about what we're going to do with the remaining money in our facilities master plan, and taking a look at the other schools, the elementary schools, et cetera. So we're aiming at getting a board study session on the calendar in February, so we can talk in detail about the middle school plan and then how we want to allocate the remaining dollars in relation to the facilities master plan. This week, Mr. Rayhill and Dr. Gill and I went to Sacramento to listen to the governor's budget update. And so we heard lots of information there, and Mr. Rayhill will give us an update on that later in the agenda. I met with my PTA presidents, PTA and PTG presidents this week, and I just wanted to give a shout out to them. They are a terrific group of people. They're really dedicated and involved and really bright, and I was so excited to see Semple and Henderson partnering together to plan their auction. And I love that concept of cultivating a community of schools and not just a collection of individual schools. So I love that partnership with them. I'd like to point out that BEF, I think I was the run on April 22nd, and I think I may have been the first registrant, because when I entered, it said registrant number 1. So I think of it. So looking forward to that fun event for Benicia and for the community. So that's it for me.
All right. Do we have the dates of the other auctions? No. Okay, so maybe at some point that would be nice to have ahead of time. So that helps with some planning. Okay, next on board reports. Talk about the rain, Mr. Morgan. Anybody have any board reports?
I took the opportunity while over the spring break, winter break, Christmas break. I don't know. I'm already. I'm still waiting for 2017. Had lunch with our maintenance and custodial staff over the holidays, and got to spend some time with them, and they did, which was really nice, and just have some one-on-one time, and also see their mad scramble to get stuff ready for school to start back open. And then I also spent time at all of our campuses walking, looking at our solar sites and all the work that's being done on there, and making sure they're doing a good job, making sure our inspectors are catching everything for that. So, but yeah.
Made one really quick stop this past Friday to the new Benicia Teen Center. Went to their open house. And I really have to say, I think they really need to be commended. I thought they've done a really, really nice job. The house that they've taken over on Church Street it's very warm and it's very inviting, I thought, and they've put a lot of thought into having quiet room for homework, an activity room, and a counseling space, and just a nice, safe place for kids to hang out. And of course, food's included, so that was a really good feature, because I don't know a teenager that doesn't love food. So anyways, but they've done a really good job, and I think we need to commend them for all of their hard work and their efforts that they have done at this time. So I just wanted to mention that.
Could I say something on that? I like to, they was able to move, or they lost where they were before, and where they're at now is probably 100 times better, but the price is $2,000 more a month than what they were paying before. So if anybody knows of any fundraising or having extra money that they could be donated to the teen center, and just the work they're doing with our kids has been outstanding. So, and I too stopped by on Friday and walked everything, and so, but yeah, there's a lot of good potential there, and the kids were excited, and they like the space a whole lot better. But money thing is something that we need to, or they need to continue looking at, but we have ways to help them out.
Thank you.
It was just local news, and Principal Kleinschmidt, we celebrate our graduates, but I was watching the playoff games, and while the outcome wasn't the way he wanted it, I'm sure, Benicia High graduate Austin Carr took the field for the New Orleans Saints. The end of the game there was pretty cool. Gary and my daughter went to school with him. I think the same class year, 2011.
Yep.
Austin Scott has a role of Hamilton, and so I don't. New York or the traveling national tour, but just celebrate some of our alumni and some of the successes they've had, and what a great school and programs we have to lose people like that. Neat.
I forgot 2 things. Dr. Beeson reminded me that Robert Semple, through the Benicia City Council, won the Ecology Award for composting. So congratulations to them. And I just want to point out as well that our solar project, which is nearing completion, to remind everybody that at the high school, it will offset 100% of the energy costs at the high school. I think 100% at Farmer, and then whatever's left over, the middle school. And then we have the panels at Henderson, Semple, and Turner, and it will provide 100% of the energy costs for those individual schools as well. So we're excited about that. And I know the high school kids will be excited to get their parking spots.
Parking too.
They get shaded parking.
They get shaded parking, right. So, okay, thank you. I'd like to excuse our students now. Thank you very much for sharing your reports with us. All right, and we are ready to begin. Members of the public may address the board on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards, which may be completed requesting to address the board, are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have any? Scott Strawbert.
Hello, board members, trustees, Scott Strawbridge. I'm here not speaking for myself, I'm here speaking for my wife, who cannot be here tonight. She's learned, being a politician in town, you can't be two places at once. So I drew the good straw to come here, and she's at the Relic, honoring one of her longtime friends and fellow merchants, Leah, who's closing Studio 41. So I wanted to thank the board for the position that they took on a very difficult subject, cannabis in town. Not only did you take a position on a very difficult subject, but you actively got involved with the discussion at the city council. And I think you made a difference along that line. Certainly Trustee Morgan, Superintendent Young, and Diane, who my wife worked with on the phone quite a bit, spent countless hours, not only the time you spend here, but the time you went down there. I saw several of you not only at the Planning Commission, but also at the council meetings. And you articulated the subject very, very well. And again, a tough subject. If we probably took a poll of the audience, half would be on one side and half would be on the other. But you accepted your role that you're here to protect the students of Benicia. And that's what our perspective is, this is all about. So we appreciate that. And not only did we have your involvement, but we had involvement of the administration at the schools. We had involvement of teachers at the school, and we had students. And they were a very persuasive group of people who came down and had their say. As I've said, this is a difficult subject. I know my wife voted for Proposition 64, but that didn't mean that I voted to put something in downtown Benicia. It's a big difference. And we're very proud of the activity we had. It's not over. There's another hearing on February 6th, at which the council will be looking at the rest of the city. They've actually approved the other parts of the city along that line. And we felt incumbent to be here tonight to thank you for your efforts and time that you took, and we appreciate it. And we may or may not see you on the 6th, but as we said, a difficult subject, but you did what was right, and we appreciate it. So I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move into the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed.
I move that we pull one discussion item under the board policies for approval, and that is the discussion item on the homework policy, which we need to have further discussion on before moving it forward.
So, Trustee Holguin, that is actually the next item, not on consent. Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we approve it as amended.
No,
As listed.
As listed.
We have
Okay.
to amend 12.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so one item that we do need to make note of is 11.2, acceptance of this.
We have one gift, and that is from Fast Break Consolidators, who contributed a $1,000 donation to BHS basketball team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move on to discussion items.
Actually, we're
No?
moving 13.2.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Right,
Really,
great.
you are making it the hardest. This work.
Wait, did
All right, 13.2.
Yes.
Thank you guys for bringing that up. So 13.2, we're here tonight for consideration and approval of resolution number 17-18-09, supportive application for eligibility determination and funding authorization to sign applications and associated documents. Staff is requesting approval to submit Proposition 51 state grant applications to the Office of the Public School Construction, requesting grant monies for facilities improvements for the following eligible schools: Benicia Middle School, Matthew Turner Elementary School, Benicia High School, Joe Henderson Elementary School, Robert Semple Elementary School, and Mary Farmer Elementary School. If awarded, the Proposition 51 grant monies, Benicia Unified School District's required matching contributions can be satisfied through prior projects that were built previously without state funding. So no additional match sources or current funding is required. The grant requires no repayment or debt incurrence to the district. So the application process is a three-step application. It's a three-step process. The first step is through the CDE, which we already submitted, and we're just super excited that we got approvals for all the school except the high school. The high school is not denied, it's just a bigger application, so it takes more review time. So the second submittal is to OPSC, and that submittal requires a board resolution. So that's what we have in front of you tonight. Now we're asking you to approve for us to go ahead and submit for the second step.
Was Liberty not eligible or not submitted?
It was not eligible. So I couldn't even begin to describe the state process for determining eligibility and not eligibility, but they have
that's
formulas.
why I didn't ask why.
Yep.
I just wondered.
It was not eligible. So the monies, if they're awarded though, they don't have to go to the school that prior projects were at. Those projects just allow you for the matching monies, so the district can decide at that point. It doesn't mean no projects can go to Liberty.
So this becomes additional money for our district, correct?
Correct. So we have our bond monies that we're working to spend, but then these would be additional monies that we could, they're for facilities use only. And so we would, well, in discussions, and of course that would all come to the board, but we're looking that we would probably look to the facilities master plan that we developed and adopted, and those improvements for tier 1, tier 2, and hopefully will mean we can get more projects built and done for our facilities.
Okay. Any more questions from the board? Then are there any comments from the public? Okay, bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve resolution number 17-18-09 as presented.
I second that.
All in favor?
It's a roll call vote.
President Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Holguin?
Yes.
Trustee Monette?
Yes.
Trustee Morgan? Trustee Wing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, discussion items, we can go to the high school bell schedule.
I'd like to welcome Principal Kleinschmidt to the podium to spend a little time with us this evening to give us an update on the new bell schedule. This was an agreement that we made with ourselves that as we got into this new and exciting schedule, that we would continue to reflect on, how it's going, what's working, and things that we need to refine, and ways that we're reflecting on it. So Principal Kleinschmidt's done a fabulous job of interacting with the staff around and collecting data in different ways, and we'll share that with us tonight. And if you have any questions, we invite them. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Excited to come to you now that we have a semester under our belt with a new schedule. It was a huge change for us, and we are actively gathering as much feedback and information as possible. And so you might have seen that a survey went out actually this week. And I have to say, after only 2 days, it's probably the most responded to survey that I have been a part of since being at the high school. So there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of opinions out there. And so what I hope to cover is how it's going so far, where we are in the process of looking at the schedule implementation and the next steps that we're taking. And I also have 2 teachers and 2 students here to give their perspective as well. So as far as the implementation and how we prepared for this and the feedback that we're getting so far, it's definitely been quite a process. So if you remember back 2 school years ago, we started with the Schedule Advisory Committee, which was quite an undertaking, and just the dedication of a group of parents and students and teachers and community members, a lot of their time for research, setting priorities, and really looking at how we could do school differently to use our minutes in a way that would be most effective for students and for their instruction. And so out of those priorities, while we were not able to implement the schedule that they ultimately recommended, we were able to still distill those priorities and do our best to incorporate as many of those as possible in the process as we continued. Last year with another committee and probably 10 different versions of a schedule until we finally came to what we have this year. And so the hope being that we continue the conversation like we're doing tonight and continue to revisit those priorities to look at how we can continue to make adjustments, continue the conversation, learn from what we're doing now, and maybe take more steps forward. So in preparing for this big change, we did some professional development with our staff in terms of looking at how we might teach in a block period, how we might plan our minutes differently, and also the movement on those days. By bringing in the access period, that's a huge change for us, and we're still learning from that and figuring out how to best utilize that time. If you remember, we visited a few schools last year with the groups of teachers and looked at what they were doing with that time and how they structured that to learn maybe what to do and what not to do. And we're now learning from our own experience with that. And so that's one of the items that we've included in our survey to get perspective on how that's working. And I'll share some of that data with you in just a few minutes. So as we implemented this coming into the first week, we actually started with, we jumped right into the schedule. And I have to say that everyone acclimated very, very well, which doesn't surprise me for the students because they seem to be very good with transition and change, and the bell rings and you move on to that next class. But for the rest of us, it took a little bit of getting used to. I have to say the block days feel slower. There's a little bit more of a relaxed energy, which I think is a good thing. We're able to dive in a little bit deeper to what we're doing on those days. And then we finish up with Friday, and it's kind of back to that 6-period day and into the weekend. And so we continue the professional development. We continue to focus on, in our staff meetings and on our PD days, what elements we need to do best in the block. One of the main things we're continuing to focus on is project-based learning. So we launched that last year, and we did a training for all of our staff with project-based learning. And so this year, we made sure to offer that again to all of our new staff. I think we had about 11 teachers join us this year that were part of that training before the first school day. So we continued our project-based learning training, and just actually at our staff meeting this week, we did a gallery walk. So we had all of our teachers bring student work and examples of what they've been doing around project-based learning now that we've had this time, this semester, to really jump in on those block period days and implement project-based learning. And it was just fascinating. Actually, Dr. Young was able to come and join us and walk through and see these different projects, see what the students are working on, see what the teachers are doing in class. And they had an opportunity to go around and engage with each other's projects with Post-it notes, put little notes about I wonder or thoughts about the project so that we can sort of
push that even further to the next level as we learn how to implement this best in classrooms. So that's been, I think, a really effective opportunity to train on this last year, implement it this year with the new schedule as well. And so I mentioned the survey, and that's one of the pieces that I'll share with you, and then we'll hear a little bit from our teachers and our students. So as of right now, because it actually just changed in the last few minutes, there's 411 responses from parents and students and teachers on the survey. And one of the questions asks, on a scale of 1 to 5, the satisfaction with the new bell schedule, with 5 being highly satisfied. And so we have 27% saying that they're highly satisfied, rating it as a 5. We have 42% rating it as a 4. So very, pretty satisfied with that as well, with a positive response, and 21% at a 3. So kind of in the middle, maybe still figuring that out. But I think that's great because that leaves us at just 10%, rating that negatively as a 1 or a 2. And so when we drill down into that a little bit more, one of the questions is whether or not that individual feels that access period is making a positive impact on the students. This is something we really want to look at closely. How we're using access. Is this an effective use of time? We're currently diving into our first semester grades to compare those to past years and look at, is it making an effect in student achievement? Anecdotally, I've had teachers come to me and say, I have more homework being turned in than ever before because they have that time to work on it or they have a teacher to go to. But we want more than anecdotes. We want to look at that data. And so I hope to come back and share that with you as well. But in terms of the survey, 77%, I'll round it up, 78%, because it's at a 0.6, are saying that yes, they feel that access has a positive impact on students. And so that's a great majority. For the question of whether or not they would like us to go back to a schedule without access period, 76% say no. And when we visited schools last year, that's what we found. Especially after a year, 2 years, 3 years, of having access, when students were asked if they'd like to go back to a time without it, they all said no. Now we want to look at why that is and make sure they're using the time effectively. And that's where the data will come in terms of grades, but also how they feel about that, because part of why we did that was the social and emotional piece, the anxiety and the stress that students feel. So having that time to slow down, having the time to work on homework, to access a teacher, to go to a speaker series with guests from different careers. We've got lots of different opportunities coming up that I'll talk with you a little bit about and invite you to attend if you're ever able to. It's just such a neat period of time where we can provide intervention as it's needed, but also enrichment, because not every student is needing intervention. There's such a range of what it is that they need. And so that's been a great opportunity as well. We are also looking at the amount of time for our block periods. So where we used to have 58-minute periods, 6 of those all day, every day, we now have 2 days with 86-minute block periods. Is that the right amount of time? Is that too short or too long? Because depending on the school that you look at, there's classes that go all the way up to 2 hours. There's some that are, about 100 minutes. And so we really worked on that number of 86 minutes last year. And so right now, little over 50%, 56% are saying, yes, that's a good amount of time. But there's also a good block of 20% of people are saying, we're not sure. That's probably a tough question to ask because, plus or minus a few minutes, how big of a difference is that? Well, it depends on how that time's being used also. And then as far as the access period, it's currently 60 minutes with a 10-minute homeroom beforehand, with the intention that that homeroom time is used for attendance taking. On Wednesdays, we do our announcements during that time, and on Thursdays, we show Panther TV during that time. The viewership on Panther TV, as you can imagine, has gone way up. And I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it lately, but they do an amazing job, and it's worth watching. And so we want to make sure that we carve out that time for viewership. And so 63% of the responses are saying that 60 minutes is the right time for access. And we'll probably continue to look at that as we consider possible adjustments to the schedule for next year. We have about 160 sort of open-ended responses that we'll filter through to look at. What I've noticed as far as themes so far, there's a lot of response in regards to later start, and that was one of the priority items set by the Schedule Advisory Committee. So we are working on looking at that possible adjustment for next year, recognizing that that has effects on all of the other school sites in the district. And so having to weigh that carefully and continue that conversation. We're also looking at, the number of block days. Might we want to extend that instead of 2 to 4 or some other schedule? So that's some of the work that we're doing now in terms of gathering feedback. We want to continue to do that and maybe dig deeper by providing opportunities to talk with people more. Unfortunately, we've held forums in the past. They're not always really well attended. So figuring out that best way to get that feedback in a way that we can make that useful and applicable. Luckily, the survey is giving us some good numbers, but we want more. So we're gonna continue to work on that piece. So I want to go ahead and call up our guests to this. And why don't I start with our students first? So we have Lauren and Alex, who are going to come and talk with us a little bit about their perspective on the new schedule.
Hello, it's me again. Well, I was talking with Lauren before we were gonna present our thoughts, and we came to realize that we both feel the same way towards the bell schedule. We both like it. I personally like access. I do like access, but the block schedule 2 days a week. I know you're talking about more days a week. I prefer it too, but I'm a senior, so I'll be gone next year. What else?
Sorry, I'm a little short. So we're just talking about how the passing periods are too long, and we would rather have a 6-minute instead of 8-minute passing period. So add those 2 minutes to either snack or lunch. As well as you're set?
During access, I do get all my homework, not all of it, but a good amount of homework done. So I think that is something we should definitely keep. I know that Ms. Kleinschmidt was talking about a later start. I really like that, but I won't be here next year. Perhaps Lauren would like it. Only if that does not cause a later ending. But yeah, that's my. Is that it? Anything else? No. Yeah, but I think that's about it for how we feel about the bell schedule at Benicia High School.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Up next is one of our math teachers, Chris Guinan, and actually he's done some really interesting work with his students in his class, and he's surveyed them on his own as well, and we've had fun sort of sharing that information, so he'll talk with you about that.
Chris Guinan, a math teacher at the high school, and I took a survey on a thing called Kahoots. If anyone's familiar with it, you get quizzes and stuff. The kids get their cell phones out, and we have contests. So on the first day back in January, after winter break, I got your back, Gary. First day, I didn't feel like diving right into the math, so we had the Kahoots up and kind of kept it light. I supported a new schedule out of just my own selfish reasons of pure boredom. 27 years of 6 periods a day. So I really don't care about my opinion. So I'm constantly bugging my students, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of that? And it's really positive. Okay, I am fortunate to have 2 calculus and 2 pre-calcs. So we're talking about the high academic achievers, and they got sports, and they got work after school. And but I just was dying to hear their opinions. In particular, when I saw that there were access periods in the middle of finals, I was like, oh, that's going to go over like a lead balloon. And I'm getting ready, embracing myself for 150 complaints. The privilege of a teacher, we get to hear it right from them. And so I made that question number 1, which was, how did you like having access period in your final schedule? 2 responses. I just wanted good idea, helpful, or would rather go back to the shortened ones. 64% good idea, almost 2/3 worded that way. But then I explained to them the next question, where'd the kids go? You take minutes from one place, you have to put them out. I hate to break the news to them on that, but then I educated them. I go, well, yeah, but guess what? You don't have the minutes there. We're going to have to put them somewhere else, and you're going to lose a couple of CPTs. Now, what do you feel? Well, it's shot from 64% to 85% approval rating on having the access period in the middle of finals. But that told me they'd rather have the time in the middle of finals, and it was a good breather, I think, both for teachers and students, and get ready for the next final. Not try to get ready for 2 big finals the night before. So it went over well, 85%, I'd say. When I say 85%, it was broken up into, 2 was great, or 3 would be even better. So they liked it. Brianna has all these numbers. And then, just because I'm a good Catholic boy and thinks everything should be in 3s, I asked a third question, which was just, how do you feel about the schedule just in general? And I had four options, and I can break it up. Awesome, don't change a thing. Nice, but minor tweaks needed. So great, go full block. But I remind them, and cover twice the material each day. Because I always try to remember, you take it here, you put it there. And then 4th one, hate it, go back to 6 periods. Want to guess how many hate it and the rest like it? 6% hate it, 94% in some form like it so much doing more. I don't think we could order a pizza in this room. 6% of the people being unhappy. So it's been real positive, and that's 150 kids, but they wanted to be heard, and I wanted to hear them. So that's good.
I'll see you at spring break.
We'll get it straight.
On the sailboat.
To quote Alex, me again. Thank you again for having me here. A little full disclosure. Dr. Holguin and I served on that scheduling advisory committee, and the discussion between 70, 75, and 80 minutes was hours. It was called a Four Corners activity, and I'll never forget it. But being on that committee, I've been on a lot of committees and WASC committees, and that was the single most exciting, challenging, and rewarding committee that I've ever been on. It's just unbelievable. The schedule, as we know, and everybody's talked about, did come out fairly different than what we had originally proposed. And I know that a lot of us felt various levels of disappointment about that, but we all kept an open mind. Some of the things that we'd hoped for was deeper and, it's a weird word to use, but slower teaching. The idea that we could take our time, breathe, and teach deeper, and that's what the blocks have been fulfilling. And a block period can be 5 or 6 or 7 short activities, or it can be a time for a real deep dive and real deep focus. And if you set up the activity, I've watched those kids dead quiet for 45, 50, 55 minutes, intense on projects. And it's been really successful. I've never had a student, I have 150 students too, and like Chris, I'm pretty lucky. All my students are AP students. I've never had a student say, this class is too long. The blocks are too long. We got to shorten them up. No one has ever said that. Another thing we'd hoped for, and we were talking about this, was, and Dr. Holguin will remember, was the flex time. We could only call it flex time. And one of the changes that came out of the schedule that really ended up being an improvement was greatly lengthening that flex time in the creation of access, because it is, the students just love it. It achieves one of the primary goals that we'd set for ourselves, was for the students to reduce stress in their daily lives. And they're still working really hard, but you walk and you think you can do anything you want in your access class. Do they come and fall asleep? They get out their math, they're going to teachers. I mean, they just do a really wonderful job on it, and really impressive. We've already talked about it. The one goal we didn't meet was the later start time, and we knew that was pretty important. I did some informal polling with my class today. It was 2 to 1 for a later start time. after explaining how the minutes worked. Oh, if we start a half hour later, do we stay a half hour later? I said, well, if you want to take 10 minutes from access here and 2 minutes from the excess passing time, pretty soon you're maybe looking at only 15 minutes longer. And they really appreciated that. The students, as was also mentioned, have universally said that passing time, the extra 2 minutes isn't needed. But that's just a student perspective. Teachers kind of like it because we have a little extra time to run to the John and get things set up. I told the students who didn't want a later start time that I would let their voice be heard. And the two main things were primarily fall sports. They didn't want to play in the dark. And those that say it doesn't matter, I'm just going to stay up later, I'm not going to use the time, or I get up at 5:30 anyway, what does it matter to me? As a teacher who put in all this time on the committee, I can say that I absolutely love it. It's been a huge, huge growth for all of us, and my students love it too. And so it's been really, really successful, and it was definitely worth all the hard work that we put in. So thank you.
Not only that, but that's how I ended up here. I just want to point out.
So great transition. You brought up some really great points. So one of the things I wanted to cover and talk about was teaching in the block, because it's been so inspiring and fun, really, to walk around and visit classes during the block periods and see different things happening that weren't even possible during a shorter class time. To see, as was mentioned, multiple activities within the short time that are connected, that maybe there's a theme running through them, that teachers are able to transition and do more within that time, and to see longer projects that are possible, and students really being able to dive in deep. And several examples come to mind, but I would put out the invitation that if you're ever interested or curious, I would invite you to come and visit, whether it's a block day or traditional day, or maybe try both, and I'd be happy to walk around with you and show you some of what we're able to see. I think that the students are more engaged, which was a fear, to be quite honest. It's a longer period of time. Are we going to see more students out in the hallways? And we don't. It's actually the opposite, that on the block days, we see less students walking around campus, taking a bathroom break, which sometimes is more of a personal, social, emotional break, because they have that time built in different ways, whether that's access or maybe the longer passing period. It's hard to quantify that sometimes, but it's just been really neat to see what's happening with teaching, and to then change the conversation when we're doing professional development and have what might be a little bit more openness to learning about different transitions and different ways of teaching, and much more collaboration within departments and grade levels to redesign things a little bit. And so this has sort of spawned some of those things happening that really are tough work when you're just trying to tackle that item. But by changing the schedule, it sort of creates the environment for that work to happen also. So that's been really neat to see. Access period. It's a big deal, especially for Benicia High School. We've never had anything like this. And to see students taking the opportunity to access resources, to see our counseling department working together to provide workshops and opportunities, to have the opportunity. Next Wednesday, we have Shared Hope International coming to do a presentation on human trafficking awareness and prevention. And we have over 150 students signed up right now. We have parents attending. We've invited Liberty High School. That's something that if we were to provide that in the past, we would have to do an assembly, change the schedule, or miss class entirely. And so that's a learning moment also. It might not be in the classroom, but it's great to be able to provide that. And then the very next day, we have our PTSA Presents with 5 different career speakers coming, from an intellectual property attorney to an FBI agent to a biorad engineer, a graphic designer. So just these great opportunities for students to get some real life information that hopefully is more personal to them. We also have a senior scholarship workshop. So these opportunities that you put them during lunch, and students need their lunchtime. So maybe they're not going to take advantage of that. But by having this time, there's some choices available to them and some opportunities for real enrichment. On the intervention side, that's really important. And I think that's something we're going to be digging into much deeper now that we've had this first semester and first year, to provide a little bit more structure around the intervention side of access so that we are looking at data regularly and setting up specific supports for students during that time that need it. Reaching out to parents to help with that as well. One of the things that we've set up already that our counselors worked on based on the data they were finding with our 9th graders is a 9th grade tutoring session during access. And our 9th grade counselor reaches out and schedules with these students, meets with them, provides this opportunity, talks with their parents, and gets them signed up so that during access, they're coming to the library and they're getting specific intervention and support through the tutoring that they need. So it's really, opportunity is the best word for this access period. So it's just been really neat to see, and I think taken on even more of a life than we even had imagined. And so it'll be neat to see how that continues to evolve and grow. So next steps, which really there's quite a lot of. One of the things that we're doing to also get feedback and to push us through these next crucial steps, we're doing focus group meetings with all of our staff. So we have a cycle of 5 focus groups with our staff this year. We're currently in our 3rd cycle. We have 8 focus groups. So all of our staff are part of one of the 8 focus groups. We had focus group number 1 meet yesterday and focus group number 2 meet today. We're talking about the bell schedule. We're talking about the priorities, late start, length of the block, how many block days, homeroom, length of access, those items that we need to consider for adjustment in order to look at what possible changes we might make for next year. The Memorandum of Understanding allows for adjustments each of the years of this 3-year pilot. We want to make the most of that and make the most movement forward that we can, so at the end of that pilot, we know where we are, and hopefully we can get a vote to secure the best schedule for our students for the long term. And so we are in the phase now of really working with our staff to have those conversations, get their experiences and their thoughts on that, and then my hoping that we go deeper into that process also with our students and our parents, because I think sharing those perspectives, which can be very different sometimes based on experience, will be really powerful. And so that's some of our next steps now, with the intent or the plan that if we're going to have an adjusted schedule, that would come to our staff in April, probably late April, for a vote for implementation next year, so that we're able to communicate that out as needed. And so we've learned a lot this year. There's been a lot of great work that's been going on, and I'm excited to have the chance to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing all this information, and it was fun even to hear our singing students talk about how, even our busy schedule, and we figured it out, an access period, like unprompted, you hear the topic come up in discussions. But it's one thing for some of us to sit around and dream about making these things happen. I really, really appreciate all the work and very intentional work that you and your staff have been doing to bring that to fruition. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wondering if there should be outreach to.
That's a great question. It did only go out to the high school parents. However, it doesn't have an ability to filter to only those parents. And I've heard it's on Benicia Happenings. Shocking. So I think it's available. So it doesn't block anyone necessarily in order to be an anonymous survey, so others can take it. But because it was more of an experience-based survey, we did keep it to the high school parents, but that's a great idea. We could put something together.
From the last go around, one of the issues was just drop off and timing, and if we are doing outreach, include the parents, and the parents who might not be there now.
Whose students will be there. Yeah, absolutely. Great idea.
Well, again, I want to thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. I've had the chance to have the opportunity to pop into Access a few times. The classes have been really exciting to see, because they're also different. There's so many different moving parts and things going on in each of the classrooms. But what I thought was extremely interesting too was the opportunity for presenters that you've been bringing in. And I also wonder if that has allowed more parents to take advantage of that and pop in. Because I've actually seen some parents showing up at those sessions first thing in the morning, where it might be easier than that noontime session at lunch before. So I think it offers a lot of opportunities for multiple people in multiple ways, more than I think we even thought about or discussed. So, but I think it's great, and thank you. And thank you to everybody at the high school. Thank you. Okay, next up is our report and our discussion on the governor's budget.
Yeah, good evening. We attended a state budget workshop on just this last Tuesday, a couple days ago in Sacramento. And the governor, as he does each year in January, puts out his governor's January budget proposal for the next fiscal year, which it would be for 18-19. That starts on July 1st, 2018. So he does update the current budget a little bit, and there are two main items in the governor's January budget proposal. Again, it is just his proposal. What happens is that now goes to the state assembly and senate and goes through their process in regards to working out details and offering up other options if they so want to pursue that, such that after it kind of goes back and forth a little bit in the assembly and the senate, the governor then puts out a May revised budget in May. So in 4 or 5 months, comes back with a revision that goes back to the state senate and assembly for a vote, such that they can approve a state budget by June 30th. In any case, that's where we start the 6-month process. And in the governor's January budget proposal, which isn't final, two main things. He does want to fully fund the school funding for LCFF. That wasn't scheduled to be fully funded for a couple years. We all think in part because this is his last year as governor. He wanted to make sure that schools were taken care of. So that proposal, the governor's proposal to fully fund the state student funding, the LCFF, would bring additional dollars into our district, as it would for all of the other districts in California. So that's good news. That's per student funding. That's ongoing funding. And prior to this, based on the previous information we had, our district was, facing some pretty tough financial decisions that needed to be made, and we're facing about $2 million in budget adjustments for next 18-19 year. So we just have the information. It's only a couple days that we've had it, so we'll definitely bring more revenues into the districts. It won't be that it doesn't solve all of our problems. Our budget adjustments would be more in the neighborhood of $700,000 to $800,000. So more than the governor's proposal would more than half our financial situation with our budget adjustments. So more to come on that as we look deeper into our budget and analyze that. The other thing worth mentioning, the second big thing, is the governor's also proposing to provide some state one-time funds, just under $300 per student, as he has done the last couple of times. So for our Benicia school district, the one-time funds of $300 per student, it's about $1.4 million. So those are some significant dollars that would come to our district should that make it to the final state budget in June.
So Tim, I have a question. Could you clarify for us? We weren't supposed to reach, phrase this correctly, the full gap funding until next year.
For a couple years out, so in 2020.
2020, okay. So that means, so the governor is looking to close it now, so that we are now at full funding. So we're going to be at the mercy of just COLA from this point on, is probably our story.
Yeah, so what happens according to the current rules with our LCFF funding is that the current budget year 17-18 and next year, the budget year, would continue to be funded under the LCFF formula and the gap percentage. And once that reaches full funding, like it will, if it's approved in 1819, that means if that is approved, that in 1920, so in a couple years out, right now it would revert back to a cost of living adjustment, or a COLA, which is recently it just got bumped up a little bit, so it's in the neighborhood of about 2.5%, I think, in those outer years. And so that would kick in unless the state legislature and the governor does something differently with state funding.
Was there any talk about the state input on STRS and PERS?
There was a little bit of discussion on STRS and PERS, basically just the recognition of the financial situation, which they're struggling to earn their interest and collect the funds needed to pay their pensions. And it was discussed that CalPERS, the classified employees pension plan, they are looking at their financial situation, and basically one of the big things that the pension plans do is they determine a discount rate or a rate of return that they're expecting to earn on all the money they have in their coffers to pay the pensions in the future. And right now, I believe it was a 7.5% discount rate of return, and they are considering lowering that to about 7%. And so that was the one thing that we're going to continue to pay close attention on, is that on the PERS side, the classified pension side, that those rates might increase for 18-19 for next year, in addition to what they've already proposed. And so we won't know that for several months, but we will definitely keep our eyes and ears open. On the certificated side, the STRS pension plan for them, that is set in statute. And so those are not likely to increase over the next couple of years. I'm sure there's things that could be pursued and legislation passed that could change them if they needed to, but at this point, those rates seem to be more set for the proposed increases, or the set increases over the next couple of years.
So if they don't make those percentages that they're saying that they think they may, the difference is still going to be made up by the districts.
At this point, on the PERS side, PERS is funded through the employers and the employees. So it's my understanding that PERS could pass along what's needed to both sides, the employer and the employee side. We'll see. That's been a pattern in the past. We'll see if they take more action on that. They didn't comment that STRS was adjusting its rate like PERS is planning to do.
I have a question, which I know is there's not probably a definite answer by any means, but in your experience, how much changes between now and the revise?
Really good question. And sometimes not a lot, and then I think more in the Great Recession, the trying times when people were really struggling to make difficult decisions, we saw more changes. I think even school services at our state budget workshop commented on that. Is that this year, which is a better year, it's not a recession year in California, is that they felt that they felt that the governor has put in what he thinks he can. Definitely full funding of LCFF is a big step and carries additional costs at the state level. And so they felt that, they weren't anticipate any major changes at the May revised level.
One of the things that I remember him saying, that when, unlike Governor Schwarzenegger, where we would get this update, and then as I'm recalling correctly, you'd have a lot of gyrations, between what he said and what they finally passed. But during Governor Brown's tenure as the governor, it looks pretty close to what he says in May. That was the difference between him and Schwarzenegger.
That this is really really what it is really important.
Let's start. I read correctly some of the reports today. Is this puts us back to pre-recession time?
It does.
So we haven't picked up anything after all this time, but we're just back to where we were.
Right.
2007, 2008, right? Which is kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
It is not. It doesn't at all reflect the housing market, right?
No, not at all. Not even
that-
close. Doesn't reflect the cost of gas either.
Continue to follow closely. So this goes to the legislature where the devil's in the detail. They start putting like a draft of budget bills together to make the budget proposal come alive. And so we'll see if there's any other fine details that impact our district and bring that back.
Okay, so I understand that with regards to the report on the high school bell schedule, well, I was going to ask for, can I ask for both separately? We have public comment. Can I combine the two of them, the two items?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that there, I skipped public comment on the bell schedule section, and I understand that someone did have a comment. So these two items that we've just discussed now, are there any comments from the public?
Hello there. My name is Paula Schnazy, and I'm a parent at Benicia High School. I just had my daughter graduated high school last year, and I have a junior right now. I'm kind of new to the game about learning all about the bell schedule, but I'm really pleased that you guys made some changes. I'm really pleased about the block schedule, and looking forward to seeing what that could look like. Yesterday, I met with Ms. Kleinschmidt. She returned my email ASAP, got me in, and she kind of brought me up to date on what was all going on. And I really appreciate that. I got a lot of good information. One of the things that concerned me is on the survey. As I understand it, there's 6 priorities for the new bell schedule. One of the priorities is a later start time, that is what the group, that was very important to the group. However, it didn't get on the survey whatsoever. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I understand that, yes, while there is room for comment at the end, if it's not on the survey, I'm thinking that the parents think that it's off the table and we're not even considering it. So I would like to see in the next survey having that be on the survey, because just to get some input, get some true data on what the parents. And then another point I also made to Ms. Kleinschmidt is as far as the students' input, it was really great to see these 2 teachers speak today about doing surveys in their class and how the students felt. So while the survey was emailed to the parents and the students, I don't know, a lot of students aren't on email these days. They're either on their text messages or the Snapchat or whatever. How about access period? How about taking a moment in access period? Having everybody get out their phones, fill out the survey. What do you guys think? You guys are the ones that are affected. Is the period too long? Is it too short? As opposed to just having a small group with the initiative to go to their email and fill out the survey. If you had everybody in the school, 1,700 kids or 1,400, whatever it is, I think your data would be a little bit more accurate. So those are just the 2 comments I wanted to make about that. Thank you.
While you're at the podium, before you run away, what is your input on later start schedule?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
this where we now? Is this where we hold up? It's not.
Yeah, so this is our a routine item that we have, and we bring these policies to the Board Policy Review Committee. We get information from school boards, and we use that to adjust, modify, edit the ones that we have. And really, a lot of these are bringing them up to date with information from CSBA. And I would like to point out that the homework policy, which is in really good shape, we want to bring that back at the next board meeting. So that would be the one that I'd like to pull out of there at this point.
What? It's here for discussion, right?
The issue. Go ahead. The issue is we are very disciplined about bringing these to the Board Policy Review Committee, and this is one that we noticed that we didn't get it to that committee first, so we want to make sure we follow that process.
The training, Mr. Wing. Are there any public comments on the board policies? Hearing none.
Well, thank you. We're very excited and pleased tonight to bring you all of these course outlines. Ms. Kleinschmidt's going to talk briefly about them and the changes that are there. As you know, the course outline plays a critical role in instruction and learning. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about how they're developed. So first of all, the teachers and the administration do a whole lot of work on researching and developing these course outlines. They bring them when they're ready to District Curriculum Council, and in past years that was always in May, and we would bring these course outlines to you in June. This year we backed it way up, so it's happening before the high school course catalog goes out next month. So they just presented at District Curriculum Council last couple of weeks ago. It was recently. There's a lot of discussion at District Curriculum Council, questions. Sometimes we ask people to go back and revise things. And so once District Curriculum Council, which is a group of teachers and administrators that represent all levels and fields across the district, and once they feel like they can support it, they say we give these outlines our support, and then they come to you. And so tonight we're asking for your review and approval of the course outlines that Brianna will present. Hello again.
I'll briefly discuss each of the courses. Most are actually not new. There maybe are revisions or changes, so those will be a little bit more quick. The Advanced Engineering, you actually approved that course last year. This is just a small change, which is that the course, instead of being a 4-point scale for the grade point average, would be a 5, similar to our AP classes. Because this is an articulated course with a community college, it's essentially, it's a college course, just like our AP courses where you would get college credit. And so the thinking behind that is, since they're doing this college level work, that they would have that opportunity to have that 5-point on their transcript, on their grade, which might attract more students to take that, and who still want to make sure that their GPA is high and competitive, and that they wouldn't be maybe shy to take the course in lieu of an AP when that's their area of interest. So that's the only change to that course before you. The next course listed is Stagecraft. We have Stagecraft currently at the middle school, and so we're looking to bring that to the high school because, as I'll be talking about, I'll talk with them together, I guess. Drama production is also on the list, although they're not listed together. Currently, we have drama production. It's a 6-period class. Students are learning all elements of putting on a production, from lighting to sound to building the stage, props, costuming. And so the thought is we're actually going to keep that course, change the description slightly, and that will occur after school as a 7th period, a similar model to how we run the band program at the high school. And that would then incorporate all of the students who are part of the fall production or the spring production, so that what they're currently doing as an extracurricular after school and spending hours of time, they would actually get credit as a course. And so all of the actors, everyone who's doing any sort of production or stage management would be enrolled in that course. So then instead, during the day as a 6-period class, we would run Stagecraft so that they would still be able to learn and build those elements separately. So that's the change there with that program and those 2 courses. NGSS Biology, the 2nd course in our transition to NGSS. Of course, we have 9th grade NGSS Physics now. This is the 10th grade course as we roll this up with the class. And so it is an integrated science course with next generation science standards. So while it's the title of biology and the focus, it does incorporate engineering and other elements as well. At this time, there is not. There has been discussion, and at this time, the plan from the science department is to start the honors designation at the junior year with chemistry, and also still have the other AP courses available, so that if a student took NGSS biology as a sophomore, could go on and still do AP biology as a junior or a senior, as we currently have. There was not. That's a great question. There is not currently an honor science class at the sophomore level. We also have medical science and terminology. This is the 2nd course in the medical careers pathway that started this year. So just continuing that pathway. That will be an articulated course as well. We covered drama production. Dance 1 and Dance 2 already exist. The change here is that we were very lucky that our dance teacher, Samantha Sanchez, was able to get her CTE credential over the summer. And so what that means is these courses now qualify as a CTE pathway under arts, media, and entertainment under the performing arts pathway. So we wanted to indicate that on the courses, on the course outlines, so that we can list that as a pathway and students can take that option as well. Then we also have advanced welding and fabrication. Again, the secondary course in the CTE pathway that we started this year with Mr. Shields. Currently, we have basic welding and automotive, so the secondary class would be the advanced course. I'll be bringing to you at a later date the advanced construction and building trades course. We don't have that one quite ready yet, so that'll come to you at a later date. Finally, AP Physics. This is kind of a long time in the making, and so we will be offering AP Physics next year. We will still keep our current physics course, and so that there's sort of 2 tiers. There's this college level AP Physics, which under AP there's several different designations of physics. This would be AP Physics 1, and so students in their course selections have a choice of level of rigor, and so those are the courses that we're proposing for next year.
Which of these courses have A through G approval?
Currently, the only courses that have A through G approval are the ones that already exist, because the window doesn't open until February, so we will submit every course. The AP Physics, of course, because it's an AP course, that would be an A through G approval. NGSS Biology, we would, of course, submit with the assumption that that would be a D approved lab, just as our NGSS Physics is. But Dance 1 and Dance 2 already approved. They can serve as a PE, or they are approved as a fine art if a student chooses to take them for their fine arts. Advanced engineering is approved. Drama production is currently approved as a fine art. So the existing courses have already gone through that process, and then we would do that process. This is one of the nice things about doing this much earlier. We have these ready to go. So when that window opens, we'll be able to submit in the first window and find out much sooner, so that should something be returned to us and not be approved, we still have several months to resubmit. So thank you for sort of shifting this up for us. It was a little bit more work, but I think it's really well worth it.
Thank you.
What about looking back from the ones we did last year? Will you have an opportunity, maybe it's too early now, but reflect and put
back whether it worked,
Mhm.
continue it.
We're going through that process now. Since about 90% of our freshmen have finished that in the first semester, we only have two cohorts of students who are doing that in the second semester. So we're going through grades, essentially, but we're also doing a survey of the students. The program itself has a pre and post survey, so we're able to collect that data. And then we're going to do a survey of our own where we see gaps. And I'm meeting with all of the Get Focused, Stay Focused teachers and our team next week so that we can dive into that a little bit more together and look at suggestions for next year. I would say the one thing that I've heard so far is doing it first semester. While it's the better time to do it because it's right as they come into high school, before they're doing course selection second semester. It's also the shorter semester by about 2-3 weeks. And so that is a little bit challenging. But the teachers that ran the course this year have been extremely positive in their feedback. And I think maybe that they were a little skeptical coming into it too. It was a new program. So I've been happy to see that they feel very strongly about it after going through it and are approaching it as far as excitement for what they might change for next year to make it even stronger.
When you're ready, it's great to hear.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back and share that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions? Any comments from the public?
Need to come to
You
the
need
microphone.
to come to the microphone, please. That's okay.
Hi, me again. So are there any courses that are not being offered? Any courses that are being dropped next year? Because I just see that there's ones that are being gained. Okay. Okay. Well, I was just curious about that. One thing, since I'm a parent and maybe you want some feedback, what I'm hearing from some parents is that the sophomore AP course, it's just sophomores should not be taking AP courses. My son actually signed up for one. Retired teachers were like, don't do it, don't do it. We didn't know. He's like, he needs to get good scores for college. So I just wanted to give you that feedback that sophomores, we talked with the teacher that is teaching this particular course. The feedback from the school is it's the hardest AP course and is being taught to sophomores. Even the teacher that teaches it says, I know, they're too young, I know. So even the teacher knows this. And he taught a different course that was not an AP a few years ago. My daughter took it. It was fabulous. It was great. She loved it, but he's not teaching that course. He's teaching an AP course. I guess he teaches 4 or 5 AP courses. So anyway, I just wanted to give you that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I would be curious if we could,
Please come up.
while she's coming up, if we could find out, brought back to us at a future meeting of, are we dropping classes at the high school or courses, and reasoning on that?
Actually, I rule, but you have to get our approval.
I don't think so. But just be curious to
Good practice.
to have,
Mary Byer, I have a senior, and she did take, when she was a sophomore, she took the AP Euro class. And that class was one of the hardest classes she has ever taken. But it also has helped her in every other class she has ever taken since then, because of all the things that she had to go through for that one course. So it is an amazing training for every other course that she's taken as an AP. Yeah, you have to be.
So,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Mary,
Yes.
do you have comments on?
Yes, I do have the comment. It is too late for my child for the AP Physics class, but I wanted to make sure that that AP Physics class is the class that will be accepted by MIT, Carnegie Mellon as the one that they are when you apply for admission, because that is why we could not do that, because she did not have that course. So we were not applying to a lot of those strict colleges because they require that as part of the application. So I just want to make sure, because I was told that there's certain AP physics class based upon math, and I just want to make sure that we have the correct one for the children that are coming behind us.
No, we got to vote on this. So I move, no, so I move that we approve the Benicia. I move that we approve the following Benicia High School outline courses: advanced engineering, stagecraft, NGSS, biology, medical science, terminology, drama production, dance 1, dance 2 as CTEs, and advanced welding, fabrication, and AP physics courses.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Now you could adjourn.
Now. Adjourn this meeting.